Hey, I'm here with Daniella Carter, star of Kokomo City. How are you today, Daniella?
I'm doing really good. I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, I love Kokomo City. It tells the story of Black trans sex workers in New York and Atlanta, correct?
That is correct.
So I have to know, what was your experience like when you were initially approached? Because I'm familiar with you from the T Word, the Laverne Cox documentary back in 2014, 9 years ago, that was on TV. So what persuaded you, I guess, to do another documentary and this one in particular?
So, like you mentioned, my journey started on the Laverne Cox Presents the T Word. And at that time, I was just getting out of foster care. I had just dealt with rape. And from that opportunity, by sharing that truth, I did get public speaking engagements. But in all transparency, it was very limited opportunities that came in. And so while it looked as if I was thriving, I was still surviving. And so for me, when D. Smith presented me with this opportunity, I was at a place in my life where now I was back working at an ad agency, had recently founded my own digital film festival. But I remembered what the journey was like to getting back to that place, right? And I was thriving, but surviving. And so I just wanted other trans people who might have been in my position, right? Where you had to always present this self that felt worthy enough or acceptable enough by looking a certain way and talking a certain way to continue to exist in certain spaces. And so I was navigating both, right? Like surviving and then also being able to keep up with a certain image to be in those spaces for those very few opportunities that would come in. And so I was balancing sex work and getting opportunities in so-called corporate America. And I wanted other trans youth to know, like, it's okay, and other trans people to know, like, you have to do what you have to do and you don't have to carry shame for it. And I didn't want people to always see this glamorized version of me because I love to be a polished girl, but it was an opportunity for me to just be real and live in my truth unapologetically. And it's been so surprising to me with the responses that I've gotten.
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing what has informed your personal politics. Because I know part of it has to be lived experience, but one of my favorite aspects about Kokomo City is I've been telling people, you know, you have a way of making these points in this film where it's truncated and it's soundbite worthy. You don't go into 2 hour, lectures, but you're making these points and you're hitting on these political, really social and political talking points in the film. And I'm curious as to what has informed your personal politic. Like where you get these talking points from? They're so brilliant.
Honestly, mostly lived experiences in the sense of through navigating survival, I've been able to access different, I guess the best way to put it is like socioeconomic realities, right? And in those moments, I was able to be seen as the just enough Black woman, right? And whether that was through passability or it was through the white men that I was able to access of a certain wealth, right? That was bringing me an environment where I was getting a certain level of respect and treatment that I know that a lot of people, whether you were trans or you were a Black cis woman, you may not have gotten that experience because of the limited of Black women I seen in this space. You understand? Like it was a lack of Black women. And so for me too, I thought about what it's like to navigate my own relationships with Black women in my family, right? Like, and I have all different kind of women in my family. It's those who, oh, I accept you. And then there's those that, oh, I accept you just enough until I see that one of my partners may be attracted to you. And so, and then I think about even just what it's like to be young, Black, and trans now, right? Like I transitioned almost a decade ago, right? And so even that experience alone and having an older generation, what I would like to say is groom me into who I am and instill the importance of knowing what affects you and what can you do to change it. And
Yeah.
some of us use survival, right, as a way to learn not only who we are, but the world we live in a survivalistic way. And so it's like, no, it's so much more outside of that. There's real opportunities. There's a community of people who know you exist but refuse to see you. And so having both experiences, I was like, if nobody's going to talk about it, girl, then you need to talk about it because you understand firsthand what it's like to be seen as, the bougie Black woman or the girl who's so broken and don't deserve attention. And
Mm,
so I knew that in bearing my truth, it was going to not only start a conversation, but it was going to be that reminder to the girl who's still going through it or the girl who persevered, right?
mhm.
It's like, wait, but I was there. And is there somebody I'm overlooking? Have I overlooked another Daniella? And what
Yeah.
can we do to start bridging those relationships?
Yeah. Is there any piece of what's the most interesting feedback that you've gotten from this documentary? Because I personally even had mixed feelings at first. Like I've seen different iterations of Kokomo City before the
Okay.
final was released. And so, even with me with the whole cultural critique, I'm interested to know community based and outside of community, have you gotten any interesting feedback from people who've screened the film or who've seen it since it's out in theaters now?
I think the most interesting feedback I got was probably after Sundance. And a Black woman came up to me who's pregnant, and she says, because of Kokomo City, I'm going to raise my child differently. I'm
Mm,
going to make sure that my husband watched this film and
mhm,
understand the importance of how we're going to raise this child. And for me, growing up in foster care and during the Kokomo City tour, I essentially lost a relationship with my biological mother, and who had said the words to me like, I accepted that you were dead to me years ago. And I remember throughout my life always yearning to find this person, to have that relationship with them, and to be seen as just enough, right? And I thought that, doing Kokomo City somehow would teach this woman that I was enough, that I was overcoming the odds and I was still getting through, regardless of whatever society stereotype of me is. But as her child, I'm thriving, I'm enough. And I remember that in accepting that I was never going to be enough to her, that there was a world of Black mothers who was going to learn that their Black trans child was enough to them. And so in that moment, I realized here it is I'm losing my mother, but it's another child getting another opportunity, right? To be loved 100% by their Black mother. And that's enough for me. You know, is it painful? Yes. But is it the thing you need to continue to remind you of what the revolution looks like? Is that sometimes you have to be the sacrifice for the other person that gets it experience the liberation and the joy. And it seems to be me, but at least I'm the person who's able to take it on and then pass on the message of the importance of providing that love. So
That's I commend you for being able to shift mindsets or frame of thought to find the beauty in such a traumatic dismissal of your fundamental personhood. Um, I'm curious to know, are there any fun behind the scenes? Because we see you in the tub. We see you walking down. We see you with your bonnet in the tub. We see you, at the beginning getting of the film, you're getting dressed. We also see you outside walking down the sidewalk. Is there any fun behind the scenes moments that popped up for you?
yeah, well, I guess the night of that bathtub, I took D to one of my favorite sushi restaurants, and they have a really good signature cocktail. And so we got good and good and good in sauce, honey. And by the time we got back to my apartment, she was like, "Oh, you should get in the bathtub." And I was so cocktailed, I just was like, "Okay, but step out first. Let me
Yeah,
create some
yeah,
bubbles,
yeah.
and then you could come in." But then, yeah, so I guess that was a really fun moment. Um, Me just like twirling down by the Brooklyn Bridge, just like living in my best fantasy was
Yeah,
also fun because I feel like that's really me. Like I'm a key, so and I always want to be full of life. Um, and so yeah, it was always fun just being with her, being free, um, and experiencing what I didn't even realize would become Kokomo City. To be honest, it was just us being our truth and me personally just liberating myself. So that
yeah.
was the fun.
And it's so beautifully depicted. You really are just hilarious and poignant, though. So, final question: what do you want? Because you kind of spoke to feedback with my previous line of questioning a bit earlier. But what is something that you want audiences to take away with them when the credits roll, when it's all said and done? What do you want these, because it's a very black film and it's going to have very black audiences, and given where we are right now sociopolitically, you know, there's brouhaha online right now between cis black women and trans black women. What do you want audiences to take with them?
I think I would want the Black community specifically to take away is that we've been hurting as a culture, and that we need to begin to heal, and that instead of attacking one another, we need to look at the systems that have been created for us to do the very thing that they want us to do, which is that divide kills and love heals. And when we begin to heal as a community and as a culture, we then know that what the liberation look like is not a fight against each other, but it's including one another. It's knowing that a Black mother deserves protection as much as a Black trans woman deserves protection. It's knowing that in Black communities, we shouldn't experience violence, but we should experience safety. The same ways in which they want to experience safety when they encounter police. We want to encounter our own people and experience safety. And so what we're having is a conversation that's not meant to come out as feeling like a debate. Is meant to invite in, is meant to serve as an opportunity to say, I don't have all the answers, but here's something that can begin to help me know what the conversation should sound like or look like. I think that when we focus so much on looking at what a Black woman is and what a Black woman isn't, what a Black man likes and what a Black man don't, we forget that the number one thing we all want is love. The number one thing we want is acceptance. Number one thing we want is opportunity beyond the one historically we've been given, which is having to be 10 times better, work 10 times harder. And for Black trans people, we're trying to exist in a world that is not only trying to eradicate us, but is trying to take away the mere existence that has helped create the language y'all use. And so when we forget that this movement is beyond talking points and snaps and a few, $100 Venmo donations, then we remember that the same way the police slain your child unjustly is the same way one of my siblings was killed unjustly, simply because of who they was. The battle is not different. We just got to join it together.
One last question, and this no, I just want to know, like, because you filmed this, but when you watched it, did anything surprise you when you saw the final product and everything was strung together? Was there anything, because we get men's perspectives, there's also your cast members, you all are four very, very different women. Did anything surprise you when you saw the final masterpiece?
The thing that will always be surprising is that you have Koko Da Doll, who is speaking about almost losing her life twice. And, when we first watched the film together with Coco, we were celebrating. We were celebrating her making it through. We were celebrating her life and legacy being told and shared with the world. And months later, we were honoring her life because we had lost it to murder. And so it would always be surprising and painful that right when we thought we had a sister on the journey with us who made it through, she fell through the cracks of the very harsh reality that so many of us have to live through every single day, which is the fear of losing our life to bigotry. And that's the thing that I hope, Kokomo City will be the reminder of, is that even while we're being celebrated, we're being hunted down and murdered. And so I was surprised to think that it could have been one of us, but I was reminded too in that moment, why wouldn't it have been one of us? What made us so different?
Wow. Well, with that, Daniella, I want to thank you for joining me today, me and GLAAD today, for this
Thank you.
conversation. And for those of you who are watching who want more information on Kokomo City, it is now showing in select theaters. I'm sure you can get on your Googler and do what you need to do to find it. It is a phenomenal documentary. And thank you, Daniella. Until next time, I'm sure
Of
we'll talk again,
course.
girl.
Yes. Have a good day.